with World War II medals, one of the biggest problems is that when they arrived, they weren't named. Now that's a real shame. But for whatever reason, the government decided for those campaign medals and stars from World War II, they weren't going to be named. So what we end up with are a lot of medals that are exactly the same, which have no link to the person who was awarded them. And that's a shame, because as we always say, every medal has a story. Now this little group of medals here are still in the posting box. Not only are they still in the posting box, but they are still wrapped in what are called the glassine packets that they came in. This one hasn't even been put on the ribbon. Now with your medals in World War II, what came with them was a little slip of paper that told you what you'd been awarded and the way to wear them. That's it. If you are a surviving soldier, sailor or airman, man or woman, all you got was this cardboard box with your name on the front and this slip of paper. If, however, you were killed in World War II, the front of the slip was slightly different in that it says the Under Secretary of State for Air, so now we know this man is an airman, sends these medals that would have been awarded to, and then the name is typed or written in the little space here, and this is Sergeant B.F. Franks. Now we know he's an airman because it says Air Council, and with it in this particular occasion has come what are called the ticker tapes, and these very tiny little bits of paper have X's marked for which medals have been placed inside the box. So in this case we have a 1939-45 star, an Atlantic star, and the 39-45 War Medal. Now what we also have on the front of the box is an address and a name, and this is Mrs. B.L. Franks. Now we know he's been killed, so this is either mother or wife. So now we have some leads, and that's what this little talk is about. It's not just the medals that we want, it's the stuff that goes with it. Now in this particular case, Basil Franks, as we have begun to find out his name is, comes with lots of other wonderful things, and this is exactly what we're looking for. So one of the best things that can always come with a set of medals are photographs. And here is Basil here with the rest of his crew sitting at dinner with their lovely bottles of beer, bless them. Here they are in front of their aircraft in their flying kit. Basil is here marked with an X, and they're flying something called a Hudson, and they were a search and rescue unit, and they were dropping dinghies to airmen who had been shot down and had ditched in the sea. Now the odd thing about this is that the pilot, the tall guy here, is a guy called Coulson, and he was actually an American, and he'd volunteered to fly with the Royal Air Force because the Americans had extra aircrew. Now unfortunately they went off on a mission over the Atlantic on the 13th of November 1943, and Basil and the rest of his crew were missing. They just disappeared. They never returned from that trip. Now what happened after that was that the families of the four airmen started to write to each other to try and find out if anybody had known anything about what had happened to their boys. And there are literally hundreds and hundreds of letters from all of the members of the crew's families writing, in this case, to Mrs. Franks, his mum, basically. And what she's done in this box here is she has kept all of the letters from the Air Force saying that he's missing, that, you know, no news has been heard of him. She's kept all of the newspaper cuttings that were about her son in the local newspaper, and she's kept all of the letters from all of the other families of the crew who went missing. And they are so sad, because there's one in there from a fiance to one of the chaps on the aircraft, and she says, I'm sure our boys will be safe. I know they'll be home by Christmas. Well, Basil and his crew are indeed still missing to this very day. But as I said, the pilot was American, and we have this little tiny cut-out note here which says, a woman from Strood Street, Egham, whose airman son has been missing since November 1943, received a box of crystallized fruit from a Mrs. Courson of Long Beach, California, whose son had been the pilot of the aircraft. And actually, when we look at what all of this wonderful stuff is contained in, it is actually the box of crystallized fruit. What you need with World War II medals in particular is all of the ephemera that goes with it. So never think, I'll just keep the medals. You want that photograph, you want the box, you want the paperwork, you want the photographs, because all of that puts your man back to being a real person again. And the last thing you can do once you've done all of that is always have a look around on the internet, because I actually found 279 Squadron book, Dinghy Drop, and they're all mentioned in there as to what happened to them. So just from 3 medals with no name on, we now have a complete story of 4 families and a mum who lost her son in 1943.